Well, let me introduce myself to start with. As you might have guessed, I'm Robert Crompton. I was brought up as a Jehovah's Witness, and I left them at quite an early age. A lifetime ago, people have been born, grown up, and retired since I left. And I've really come back to looking at the situation since I retired. As a young guy, I considered myself something of a high flyer in the movement, and I think I was justified in doing that. I got on the ladder of the leadership group at the age of 17. At 18, I was a pioneer. Before I was 19, a special pioneer. And before I was 21, I was theocratic ministry school overseer, group study leader, and then a defector. I'd grown up in the movement with a real interest in studying. I enjoyed being a witness. When I was a young teenager, one of the books that I bought for myself, because I really loved to do this, and I was a vacation pioneer, as the term was then. So I could get books at big discount. So for something like 3 shillings and 7pence or something like that, I bought myself a copy of the Greek English interlinear New Testament that they published, the emphatic dialogue. I wanted to study it, and for quite a long time, I was content to study within the confines of the movement. But as a special pioneer in Clydebank, just outside Glasgow, I was seduced, I suppose, by the local library, which was a wonderful place. It had a magnificent collection of works on psychology, the complete works of Jung. It had lots of books on philosophy and logic. Ooh, and that tempted me. Some really good novels I picked up there, and that triggered one of my other interests, because I wanted to become a writer. And that is what I am. I am, although I became a Methodist minister long time after leaving, I'm first and foremost a storyteller. As one of my members said to me when I was retiring from my last appointment in the church, after a sermon I had preached, when I was getting folk to enter into the atmosphere of listening to this traveling rabbi telling stories. She said to me afterwards, "Of course, you're a bit of a storyteller yourself, aren't you?" And I said, "Well, yes. I never actually preach a sermon, I just tell the stories." And that's me. I'm a novelist at heart. And it's with that hat on, really, that I come back to looking at the witnesses. Well, not the witnesses, those who have left them. And one of my great interests in writing is one of the topics that I studied in my first degree, in linguistics. Fascinated by language. I was very interested in ambiguity and scope for words to mean not quite what we think they might mean, all depending on the context. And that's the kind of thing, the kind of outlook that I'm coming back to, looking at the experience of someone who's leaving the witness movement. So what faces the new defector from the Watchtower movement? Perhaps they have a feeling of, at last I've done it, I'm free, broken free, a feeling of relief. And what confronts them? Well, is it a wide open field ahead of them? Sky's the limit? Well, it could be, but more likely, what confronts the new defector from the movement is a conflicting array of signs being urged in all sorts of different directions at once. Or else it's a blank wall. Where do we go from here? Nowhere. We just stare at the blank wall and hope. So what we have to do is to somehow sort out those confusing pointers and try and find a gateway that we can get through so that we move from this initial point of having left the Watchtower movement to becoming completely free, being ourselves. Let's think about how words we're very familiar with have a whole range of meanings which we've not thought of, but which might make things look very different. Here's three examples from biblical discourse, and don't worry, even though I'm a Methodist minister, I'm not going to try and drag you into any religious involvement. I'll come back to that sort of thing and offer pointers, but let's look at these three words we all know about from our background in reading the New Testament. Logos, word, it's got to be word. I checked in in as many translations of the New Testament as I could find, and with only one exception, all translate logos as word. Angelos, it's a heavenly being. Spirit being, isn't it? The word doesn't only mean that. And Judaios, Jew. Well, what's controversial about that? Well, these words have other meanings as well. And coming to it as someone with a background in some classical philosophy, when I read logos, I think, oh, this is Platonism. When logos means the rationale, the pattern, the reason, and that. And angelos, in many places in the New Testament, it's translated simply as disciple. John's disciples, John's angels went to go and ask Jesus something. Judaios, Jew, just means Judean. Now imagine that you put those meanings into the New Testament. read the Gospel of John with those meanings, and it's utterly different. It's a completely different story. And indeed, that one, angel or messenger, well, it triggers the storyteller in me. And I read the nativity stories in Matthew and Luke, and I think, well, angels and wise men and all those, have the words misled us at some point? Words can mislead us so easily. And we'll look now at some, well, completely uncontroversial words and phrases, which we'll take for granted. One of those things that we never have to stop and think about. And we find that within these areas, misdirection can lurk because of the words, the phrases that we take for granted. It's quite uncontroversial. Let's think first about the word true. Well, what could be wrong with wanting to find what's true? We don't want to find what's false, do we? Of course not. Find what's true. And we can think of a definition of true so that at the real core end, you've got what's absolutely certain, unchangeable. We know it's true. And then, well, most probably, we're justified in believing that this is true. And, well, quite likely, and can't be sure. And then there's what's not true. Is it an honest mistake? Is it a careless mistake? A reckless mistake? Or is it intended deception? And the trouble is, we can put these two together, absolute certainty and take intended deception as its opposite. Let's think when religious doctrine is described using these terms. Where does authoritarian religion fit in this kind of analysis? Well, its doctrines have to be absolutely certain. There's no room in the kind of religion that Jehovah's Witnesses are for, well, maybe not. We define ourselves, don't we, thinking in the witness frame of mind, as being in the truth. And indeed, that's something many folk will carry over after having rejected it. They will still talk about when I was in the truth. In the truth being that the religion I don't believe. Well, let's think about how these words might mislead us. Is there any scope in authoritarian fundamentalist religion for the doctrines to be most probably correct? Or, well, maybe, or not sure. Or instead, do they have to be among those? From an honest mistake, oh gosh, I really believed this at one time. It's a careless mistake. Well, I was led up the garden path, the reckless mistake, guide. Didn't check. Or is it that intended deception? If the doctrines aren't absolutely certain, they're telling lies. Well, they might not be. And remember, those of you who were witnesses, how people would talk about what they believe rather differently from how people in the mainstream religions would talk about it. Ask the mainstream Christian, well, what do you believe about such and such? The answer would start with, oh, well, I believe that, well, such and such. Ask the Jehovah's Witness, well, what do you believe about that? And their answer will be, well, we believe. May not be certain, I may have, oh, don't know about this, but what do you believe? Well, we believe in this. Are they lying? Are they treading water? Making time to try and get their heads around this. We believe that such and such. But I'm not letting on to anyone at all that I'm not sure. Well, let's consider this. If true religion is that which was revealed by God, then, as we've said, all its doctrines have to be absolutely true. But suppose that's set aside, what happens then? Well, it seems to follow that all religion is man-made. And to so many coming from the authoritarian, the coercive, controlling religions, man-made religion means fake religion. But what else is man-made? Does man-made have to mean worthless or fraudulent? Surely not. Think about what's a man-made. On the true or not true scale, what comes on the our best so far? Well, to the cult member, poor mediocrity. To themselves, well, their own beliefs, that's God-given. Really? Our best so far, the man-made, includes current up-to-date scientific thinking, the latest historical research, everything that's going on. And who guarantees that for us? Well, scientists, the historians, the whoever. And think of the achievements, man-made stuff. Who guarantees religious doctrine? Well, to the fervent believer in the fundamentalist religions, well, that's guaranteed by God himself. When? At what point? And you can keep going further and further back in the chain, and you never come across the time when, God said to Pastor so-and-so, yeah, that's what it is. It's always the very human person who supposedly guarantees that evidently, not so evidently, God-given truth. Under our best so far, instead of calling it man-made, let's think of human achievement, and it's good. Think back historically to the beginnings of civilization and the great inventions, the magnificent achievements in architecture, in philosophy, in science, a very ancient world. And it's, well, jaw-droppingly inspiring. It's awesome. It's human achievement. All religion, though, well, man-made bad. Is there any possibility, though, that there could be religious expression which could come under this other word, this other meaning of human achievement rather than man-made, therefore bad? Human achievement, great. Are all human achievements, all of these things are human achievements. None of them can lay claim to being absolutely true. But what that means is that there is always the promise of more and better yet to come. But now look, we've got science, history, then philosophy, the arts. Can we talk about all those in terms of true or not true? Is it true or not true, for example, that the music of Mozart is the best there is? Well, Dave might think so. And Mary says, oh, you're at the wall. This other music is far better. Who's talking the truth? Truth doesn't come into it, but the arts, the humanities, greatly valuable human achievements. Is there any possibility that some form of religious expression it could come under this sort of thing? But truth is not the category to look for. It's something else, like in music. It's something akin to aesthetics and so on. What would religion need to reject or embrace in order to be like this? Well, this, giving my personal point now, is where I'm at. I'm the Logos type Christian, believing not in a God who is being, but a God who is a process. And I just throw that out as something to, hey, what are you talking about? What do you mean? Something to come back to later if you feel so inclined. Let's put that on one side for now. Let's think of the possibility that there can be religious spiritual expression that doesn't require us to seek for absolute truth, but rather offers us the opportunity to grow and to develop. Move on now and think of another area where words and phrases which on the face of it are quite uncontroversial might nevertheless mislead us. Within the Watchtower movement, what is the ideal sort of personality? It's the sheep-like person. The one who is characterized by humility and not a proud such person. Always urged to avoid independent thinking. And these things all go to underpin the acceptance of the leadership. But let's consider the the top one there, the top line, humility and pride. Let's focus on that. And what does it mean to for someone to say that they're not very good at something? Or that something I do, well, it's nothing to be proud of. A lot can depend on the inflection we put on it. Well, I'm really not very good at doing such and such. But in another context, it might mean, hey, look at me, I'm being very humble. Let me tell you, give you an example, which really set me thinking myself about this business of Christian humility and avoidance of crime. When I was in the theological college, training for ministry, I moved up to the second year and we welcomed a new intake of students training for ordination. I visited one of these new guys in his rooms in college in Cambridge there, and saw that he'd moved his own piano into his room, his set. We had quite spacious accommodation. Oh, John, you're a musician then, are you? Oh, I wouldn't call myself a musician. I just like, pet you. A few days later, I walked into the college chapel, and John, who, no, I'm not a musician, he was playing the organ, and he was brilliant. He was super. He was up on the level of our college principal, who was fellow of the Royal College of Organists. He was that good, and we just had to, sit and listen as he made that organ dance and sing. And if someone like that says, "Oh, I'll self a musician," what's it saying to the others? Don't you even think of trying. Think of another sort of humility. The sports person, the actor, who has been given a great award, the greatest award there is. How often do we hear them in giving their thanks for this award say something like, "I feel very humble"? That's the sort of humility to go for. That little old me could have been given something so wonderful. And speaking with preaching on the topic of the gifts of God, think of these talents as gifts from God. The gifts of God are not just prophecy, healing, and so on. They're skill with the football, they're skill on the piano, they're everything you can think of that you enjoy doing, everything, every ability. Think of it as a gift from God. You're going to say, that's no good. How can that show gratitude? And thinking of my own position, I meet the divine, the Logos divine, walking in the forest, and I look at that tiny, insignificant little flower. I look closely, oh, it's wonderful. It's awe-inspiring, it's great. That is the sort of wonder with which we should hold our own gifts in. How can we be grateful for something that we say, well, we're not very good. No. And this is the independent thinking. We have this ability to think, but the cult has said, don't think for yourselves. Independent thinking is bad. And the loyal witness cannot take pride in anything at all that isn't directly involved in putting Jehovah first. Everything has to be put on one side. Be the humble sheep-like person who says in effect to God the giver, thanks, but okay, I'll not use it. No. So, independent thinking. The one who has left, defected from the group, can now begin to think independent. Surely. And pretty well soon after defecting, we'll come across another expression where the watchtower has said no, the defector says, yes, I'm going to get involved with this. And we come across this other expression, critical thinking. And here's a word which can so easily send us in the wrong direction. Yes, critical thinking in the sense of being analytic, being someone who, what if, how does this fit? But to the witness, critical means rejecting. And this can so easily set up the defector to be vulnerable to the conspiracy theory type things. Critical thinking, yes. Don't trust what the leaders are telling you. The defector has learned this. Don't trust what the watchtower leaders are telling you. And has grown up with. Don't trust what the scientists tell you, and so on. And we can so easily become vulnerable to these conspiracy theories where, you know, don't trust the medical profession when they're telling you this, that, and the other. No, don't believe it. Don't believe it. Don't believe anything. We're all being manipulated. So instead, instead of independent thinking or critical thinking, let's just think. And think analytically. What if? How can we do this? Think collaboratively. Well, if I want to explore this, tell me, where should I start? And you get a dialogue, a back and forth. People working together. What have you found out? I've discovered this. And this is the model of the teachers at the higher levels. Here's a book list for you. Go and read those and come back and we'll talk about it and we'll take it further. It's collaborative thinking. And then there's the creative thinking that we want to be involved in. Don't think exclusively in terms of independent thinking or critical thinking. Just think. Is it time?
Yes, sir.
Right. Run out of time. But the world out there, let me just say, wind up. The defector thinks, oh gosh, they're all bad. The decent folk, you can hardly see them. But the watchtower has defined the decent folk as those who will respond to their message. In fact, where can we find new friends? It's far more decent folk. And, well, I'll quickly go through. But the trouble is, they don't understand our problems. Well, Do we understand their problems? Could our experience help us to know where they're coming from? Or ask a different question. Do they understand our questions? Who should we go to ask? Well, how can I get a start in getting back to education? How can I get a start in picking up again my musical talent?